Enzo Maresca has confirmed that Cole Palmer's injury is in fact worse than we initially feared. It looks like he's going to miss our next 4 competitive matches, so what are we going to do about that centre attacking spot? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today, that means talking about the unfortunate news that Cole Palmer is not going to be with us for a little while, and what is it that we're going to do in the meantime. But guys, before we get into it today, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. So, Cole Palmer's not going to be around for a while, man. That is just how it is, unfortunately. And I guess it couldn't really have come at a better time if you consider the next 4 games we've got without him. After the international break, we are back in action on the 18th of November up against Nottingham Forest. That is the first of 4 games that he's likely to miss. Those games include Nottingham Forest in the Premier League, Ajax in the Champions League, Sunderland in the Premier League, and Wolves in the League Cup. So, on the face of it, 4 winnable games, right? And, you know, not the end of the world that we're not going to have Cole Palmer there at the end of the day. And ultimately, I said this in one of my last videos, he's the one that we need to be super careful with, man, because if you try and rush him back and it just makes the injury worse and we lose him for a really long time, like, replacing Cole Palmer's potential output and quality is going to be much more expensive. If we lose Cole Palmer in like a Levi Colwill situation, then we have to go and get someone to start replacing that attacking output. And getting someone anywhere close to Cole Palmer is going to cost 100 million. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely what it is. More and more, it's starting to make the decision not to go for Xavi Simons look like a bad one at the end of the day. We really could have done with a Xavi Simons in our squad right now. He looks like he's fitting in pretty well at Tottenham. He's adapting to the Premier League reasonably well. And we could have done with some extra centre attacking backup. But injuries can't really be predicted, man. Do you know what I mean? Injuries can't really be predicted. The only thing we were dealing with at the start of the season, as far as we knew, was the form situation. But the groin thing has been going on for a long time. So it does, again, now look like a bit of a faux pas on the part of the ownership to only bring in Facundo Buonanotte to be like a real support for that position. But let's just look at the 4 games, man. Let's look at the 4 games and, you know, in all honesty and just kind of start to digest whether we think we can actually win these games or not without Cole Palmer in tow. Nottingham Forest, absolutely, they're not doing well at all, truth be told. They've, you know, dropped really far down the table from where they were. It must have been a really difficult period at the club when Nuno got sacked, and obviously they've brought in Postecoglou, who ultimately plays a very different type of football and is a very different type of character. But at the end of the day, yes, they will have had the international break to start getting everything together, but they've not been doing amazing with Postecoglou. There's already been talks about sacking him, which I think is ridiculous, by the way. And we can win that game. 100% we can win that game. Ajax in the Champions League, tricky customer, but at the end of the day, you know, we beat Benfica. I wouldn't have said Ajax are much better or worse than Benfica in the grand scheme of things. So again, another winnable game. Sunderland might actually be a particularly tricky one, truth be told. They're smashing it at the moment, man. Granit Xhaka looks like a man reborn in the Premier League, and you know, I've seen a couple of comments from Sunderland fans on YouTube saying that they think Granit Xhaka might be the best player to ever play for Sunderland, which is a absolutely massive shout considering how long they were in the Premier League before. But again, ultimately, on paper, should absolutely be another winnable game. And Wolves in the League Cup, man, do you know what I mean? 100% that's another winnable game. So, you know, if you look at the 4 games in isolation, none of those games are against particularly tricky customers, just from the eye test and the numbers and what you see in the league table. League table, Sunderland are actually above us at the moment, but at the same time, promoted team. Do you know what I mean? It is not unreasonable to expect us, after beating Liverpool, to be able to beat all of these teams. Now, speaking of beating Liverpool, let's move on to who plays that position. Do we do a formation change? I very much doubt it. So the instant one would be Enzo Fernandez, right? If we've got the likes of Romeo Lavia back and Andre Santos is going to start being a bit healthier because he's obviously coming off an injury as well, you would have thought that Enzo Fernandez probably plays that role for the majority of these games. So with the Forest game in particular, it looks like that might not happen because Enzo Fernandez's international stretch with Argentina in this break actually reaches until the 15th of October, and the game with Nottingham Forest is on the 18th. So that might just be a bit too close. Do you know what I mean? A bit too close. So he actually might be without Enzo Fernandez for the Nottingham Forest game as well. So it's probably, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Facundo Buonanotte will get minutes in some of these games, largely probably against Wolves and maybe against Sunderland. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But for the most part, You've just got to expect young Brazilian superstar Estevao Willian to start getting tested, right? And I say that with a pinch of salt because I feel two completely different ways about this idea. I absolutely want to see it. If Cole Palmer isn't available to play the 10 with the squad we've got at the moment, I don't want to see anyone else apart from Estevao in that spot. But he's 18 years old, man. That's the other side of it. Do you know what I mean? And we've all had these conversations. Like I've talked with, Kai from behind the dugouts, and we've had streams on the Blue Lounge. Throwing Estevao into the thick of it at 18 years old is a risky proposition at the end of the day. Because if we push him too hard and he gets injured because he tries too hard or he runs too much or, he's just with a young player, if you create an injury with a young player, then you're looking at obviously, really, really could change their career. We were really lucky with Reece James, for instance, but how many times have we seen young players get played too much, get injuries, a la Jack Wilshere, for instance, and then never really hit those heights that they did before? So there is a possibility of that happening if we played Estevao in every single one of these games in the 10. I don't think that's going to happen. But at the other side of that, he's kind of the best option, isn't he? Especially if we just look at the Nottingham Forest game, without Enzo Fernandez being available for that game, which we can only assume is probably going to be the case, then it's going to be Estevao Willian, isn't it? Facundo Buonanotte, like I say, will get minutes potentially, maybe even against Ajax, man. I'm not sure, but you would have thought that after coming off the back of the Liverpool win, which Estevao, not only for the winning goal, was a massive, massive part of, but also, he tore them to shreds when he came on the field, man. It was, he played for like 20, 25 minutes, something like that, but he was everywhere. The ball was constantly getting to him. He was constantly getting around people, making great passes, running through 2 or 3 players at a time, like absolutely unbelievable performance from Estevao Willian on that right wing. And if he's managed to keep that momentum and take it with him and he's feeling really good, then it is essentially a good time to put him on. Do you know what I mean? It is just a lot of pressure for a young lad. And like I say, just I can't stop thinking about injuries at the moment. Like the reason we're here in the first place is because Cole Palmer's played too much football. Do you know what I mean? And we've got players dropping like flies around us. And to be fair, everyone in the Premier League does. Obviously, Arsenal just had the really bad news about Martin Odegaard. And, City lost Rayan Cherki. Like, a lot of these young central midfielders and centre attacking midfielders that are playing for the biggest teams are having struggles. Not in the centre, but Noni Madueke is injured for a while for Arsenal. And I think Saka's only just come back in, but they're going to need to be really careful with him. There is a trend going across the Premier League at the moment. We have been hit by it a lot harder than most teams have, especially with our defence. But injuries is a real problem at the moment. And in the midst of this happening to all of these players at the moment right now, it is a bit worrying. But of course, there are some caveats with it. Estevao Willian in particular played a huge amount of games with Palmeiras. And that's one of the things I found out, actually. When the Club World Cup was on, I found this table that was in Portuguese. It was amazing. It was teams that had played the most football in the last calendar year. And the top 2 or 3 teams were all Brazilian teams, man. They were playing like 60, 70 games a season. Do you know what I mean? There was so much football going on, including the Club World Cup and that. I think Chelsea were like 8th in that table, and like Flamengo were top or something like that. And Palmeiras were quite high in that list as well. So I guess that's one benefit, is Estevao is used to playing a lot of football in general, but obviously the pace and physicality of the Premier League is a little bit different. So just from the football manager tactical sort of aspect of it, yeah, 100%, I would love to see Estevao Willian get most of these games in the 10, but it is dangerous to try that in complete honesty. So I think, like I say, Enzo will probably miss the Nottingham Forest game, maybe then come back in for the Ajax game. We've got lots of wingers, do you know what I mean? And it largely also depends on the central midfield situation. If Lavia can stay fit, then Enzo will probably get at least 2 of those games. If Lavia doesn't stay fit and Andre Santos is still a bit of an issue, then it's going to be Buonanotte and Estevao Willian. So, difficult one, man. A really, really difficult one. Like I say, ultimately, it's come at a reasonably okay time, and there's never a good time to get injured. Do you know what I mean? There's absolutely never a good time for all these players to get injured. So, this is a stretch of 4 reasonably very winnable games. If we had Man City and Barcelona, and you know what I mean, in this stretch of games, then it'd be a bit more of a worry, because then you've got the mentality of the event on top of the physicality of the games that you're going to be facing as well, and that would definitely make things a little bit more worrying. But Forest, Ajax, Sunderland, Wolves. Buonanotte probably get the start against Wolves, maybe against Sunderland, depending on how well Estevao does or the fitness of Enzo Fernandez. it is going to be interesting to see how we start lining up. And again, there might be a case of a formation shift. Do you know what I mean? And again, this is also considering the centre midfield situation, man, because Lavia is starting to come back and look good again. Do you know what I mean? He's getting minutes, which is really good. Andre Santos, if he's fit, because I think his injury probably not quite as bad as someone like Cole Palmer's, for instance. So they're going to be available. But we're without Dario Asugo, and Moises Caicedo is probably going to have to play all of these games as well. And he might be carrying an injury worry. I did a video a few days ago. Are Chelsea's injury woes over? No. And this is just highlighting that, really, isn't it? This is just highlighting that. So what this is a massive chance for the likes of Estevao and Buonanotte to start making their mark on the team. It is important, and Maresca said this as well when he was talking about it, we need to show that we're not a Cole Palmer team. And I do 100% agree with that. I think we saw that against Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if we can do what we did against Liverpool without Cole Palmer in the team, Enzo Fernandez had a great game as well, by the way, then that is really good, because when Cole Palmer becomes fit again, all of a sudden you've got a selection headache for the manager, you know, if everyone's on form and everyone's playing really well. But I mean, the other option that I haven't talked about, actually, which could be possible, and we've seen it a few times as well, is João Pedro playing in the 10. Now, Mark Gue has finally got some minutes, so I would expect maybe Mark Gue to get a couple of minutes against a few of these teams going forward as well. So maybe also João Pedro could find himself playing in that number 10 role if Mark Gue is trusted enough. The Tyreek George experiment, I think, just needs to stop. I'm seeing more news recently about Tyreek George being allowed to leave in January, and there are lots of clubs that are in for him. You know, he's probably not going to be happy playing a striker. Maresca probably isn't really happy playing him as a striker either. And the fact that we saw Mark Gue get minutes against Liverpool shows you that there is some thought about Mark Gue being a guy that can play against high-level opposition. So maybe we see a bit more of Mark Gue and we see João Pedro in the 10. Maybe we see lots of different lineups. This is the other difficult thing, isn't it, as well, is like you need to start building consistency at some point. And for all of the really good players that we've got, that seems to be one of the most difficult things that we're really, really struggling with. We haven't been able to have the two same centre-backs play 3 games in a row for, like, I can't even remember how long. We keep having to chop and change our attacking line because people are still, like, the only ones, you know, the only ones that are always playing is Caicedo, Sanchez, Cucurella, Neto, and João Pedro. And other than that, everyone else is changing quite a lot. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, even though those players are playing, João Pedro will play in the 10 or he'll play as a striker. Do you know what I mean? It's not always exactly the same roles either. So we're struggling to build consistency, which for a system manager is probably quite hard. Do you know what I mean? Because everyone's having to play, like Estevao's come out and said, oh yeah, Maresca's trying me in lots of different positions. And he obviously really likes that. But at the same time, it's like, is this the thing now? Is the idea to have a collection of players that can just play in all these positions and the system is king? Or do we still need to try and build some consistency? Because what would be better? Would it be better to play Enzo in one game, João Pedro in another, Buonanotte in another, and Estevao in another in that number 10 role? Or would it be better to play Enzo Fernandez in 3 of those 4 games and, you know, only play around with the attacking wing options? I'd love to know what you guys think about that in the comments, but we are scraping through games at the moment. Like the Liverpool one was a great example of that, against the grain of building a squad. Do you know what I mean? Because we are trying to obviously build a squad, but what we're really struggling with at the moment is getting consistency. One of the biggest difficulties about losing Levi Colwill is not that he's that Van Dijk level of centre-back. It's just the fact that he was so consistent and you could always rely on him to play that certain role, which meant that when Enzo Maresca is putting his team together, he's like, right, I've got Levi Colwill in that position playing that role, and I know he can do it the way that I want him to. Can he get better at it? Yes, absolutely. But at a base level, you've always got that same function from that one player in that one spot in the team. So this is what I'm starting to see as being the real challenge for us, man. And I think all of these games are very winnable. Do you know what I mean? These next 4 games. The 5th game after that is Tottenham as well, by the way. So if what we're saying is that maybe Cole Palmer's back for the Tottenham game and he's fit and firing, then that's the kind of time that we're going to start to need him back, because that's when the games are going to start getting a bit more difficult. But we'll have to see, man. We'll have to see. So, guys, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. Is Palmer being out for these 4 games, is that the end of the world? Does that mean that we're definitely not going to pick up all of these wins? Or do you think we can pick up a win in each and every single one of these games based on all of the players that we've got? Do you think that the versatility is actually our strength, or is the lack of consistency going to be one of our weaknesses? Do you think it's too risky to play Estevao Willian in all of these games? Do you think Buonanotte should be getting game time? Do you think Mark Gu should play up top and João Pedro should play in the hole? The questions are all there to be asked. We've got another week and a bit while the international break's going on in order to answer those questions, and I'd absolutely love to know what you guys think in the comments. Nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there, but I hope you have all had an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.